but I saw my wife call on my phone and I was just like, she's gone. And I knew it. And, I was like on a phone call with someone and, I just like hung up and went to my boss and was like, hey, I can't do this today. My daughter just died. And so I got in the truck and dude, I have never felt so much rage go through my body. Like when I say I feel like I could rip the steering wheel out of my truck, I could have. Like I just felt so much rage and frustration. And I've been doing so much to prepare and like help be ready to be a father, going through all of this mental health issues and, all the different choices that I messed up or tried to make right in my life. I feel like I wasn't going to mess this up as a father. And I was like, I got so close and now I can't do anything. She's gone. Like I can't do anything for her. All right, bro. I think the world wants to hear you intro.
Okay, world, listen to Freak Up. We're recording on March 23rd, 2024. These usually come out a week or two after the fact. But a storm has just come in through Utah after a couple of days of beautiful weather. And we're nestling into a Saturday evening of conversation. And hopefully we can do so in such a way that adds value to your life. And the topic of conversation tonight is a really important one to me, but obviously much more important to Cole. And it's actually going to be about his story of love and of loss and grief and healing with the loss of his firstborn daughter. And so I'm going to ask him to tell the story, and I'll ask him some questions after the fact, and he'll probably give some tips to anybody else out there who has experienced something similar and show where he has found peace and healing and strength and the role maybe that he had as a father and what he felt that he had to do and did for his wife, who was also grieving, and where we are today. So I'm going to, housekeeping, Cole, before we get into your story.
Well, first off, I'm not sure why I'm the one who's done the intros or like the kickoffs ever in the past, because that was way better. That was way better than anything I've ever done. I don't think that there's much housekeeping. I would say they've probably already come out, but there are episodes mainly around the 7 to 12 range that are phenomenal. And please go listen to those along with the other ones. And I know that some people are listening and kind of word is getting out around about the podcast, but I really think it's good for the world. Like we're really proud of it. So please share it and give it a chance. It's really good. But other than that, I'll just get right into it. And I am going to start in a place that's maybe going to confuse a lot of people, but I think it helps paint a good picture. Give a little bit of meaning, whether you're religious or not, kind of seeing like, oh, that happened to me and I can use that to strengthen me or whatever, kind of similar to our episode with Sydney Smith, how he had a circumstance happen in his life and he really has such a good outlook going forward. So some people think that there's no coincidence in life. Some people just take advantage of opportunity, however you see it. But when I was growing up, a lot of people maybe wouldn't believe it, even in my family, but I was bullied actually quite a bit. And it was verbally. I think I'm confident in myself now, but so I have like a bigger nose, right? Some people like it.
Some would say great godlike.
But I got teased about that pretty bad, and I didn't have like, facial hair or anything. Like I got called Jew boy and Big Bird and all these just ridiculous names where if someone said that to me now, I'd laugh at them. But when I was developing as a young teen, it really got to me. And then I also had a condition on my chest, my sternum. It's called pectus excavatum, is where it dips in. It's like a concave chest. Anyway, and when you're tall and lurpy and skinny like I was, I would and play basketball, shirts and skins. Like I got teased a lot. I got bullied a lot, got called a lot of names, and very young in my life, like I wanted to, like I did things to hurt myself. And I wanted to take my life. Like I thought about that very often. I never attempted, but I thought about it a lot. And then it kind of went away. And then, I got married, and for some reason, two or 3 years into the marriage, it came back, and I don't know why it came back, but it did. And it was even worse than it was growing up. And, I really did. I had extreme like panic attacks and like hard to breathe and just like not sleeping. It's just crazy how it came about. But like I was back to the point where I just wanted to take my life. I just thought the world was better off without me. I felt like I was nothing, good for nothing. So, and I can remember, I'm a pretty religious person and spiritual person. I can remember during that time being like, God, why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me. Why are you making me feel this way? Which, looking back at it now, I don't think that God was making me feel that way. I think that it was just a result of how my brain developed and maybe my diet and my DNA and things that weren't processed properly through therapy, counseling, etc. So anyway, I went through that, and then I went, my wife and I, she was so supportive going through counseling, etc. And at one point, I just woke up one day and was like, I'm ready to stop. And I know that doesn't happen for everybody, but just one morning it was like, you can let this go and you'll be okay. And I'm so thankful for that moment. I don't know what happened or, what was working up to it. Probably a lot of love and support from my wife and her dedication and going through counseling, etc. But since then, I've never had those thoughts, and I feel very strong mentally. However, during this time, my wife and I were trying to get pregnant. And, or should I say I was trying to get her pregnant, because a man claiming, I don't know, people, it's different terms.
Weird
like,
sentence.
Yeah, like we're pregnant. No,
me.
like she's pregnant and I'm supporting her. So anyway, and we had a hard time
trying your darndest.
Trying my darndest. So it took about a year, which was quite a bit of time. And that could have been, from birth control or diet or whatever, just hindsight. It could have been from a lot of things. But we did get pregnant, and we were ecstatic about it. And we found out we were having a girl, and like, that was just, as a father, and you've got a sweet daughter. It just felt so tender that my firstborn was going to be a daughter. And I was so excited for that. And then we go, everything's good. We go to the 20-week ultrasound where you kind of like get more in depth about the functionality of the child and its growth. And they're like, oh, we think her arm is covering her heart. Things just don't look right. And we're like a little nervous. We're like, okay, yeah, no, her arm was just in the way, maybe, we just need to get better picture and better images. So we go to a pediatric cardiologist, I think, and get, I could be messing this up, so Casey, maybe help me out, but it would, I think it was maybe an echocardiogram.
Yeah, it would be an echocardiogram. Mm-hmm.
On an infant in utero.
A neonatologist, or like a neonatologist specializing in cardiac issues. But I mean, that's what neonatologists do.
I don't remember the terms. I remember all of the, the faces and the feelings and all of that. But anyway, it was just better imaging for the heart. And we went, and I can remember the tech who was doing it wasn't saying a word. And we're like, this doesn't feel good. And we sat, and the doctor came out to us and was like, hey, your daughter has something called Epstein's anomaly, which is a very rare condition, heart condition, and she's probably not going to make it. And she's at 20 weeks, and we're like, oh my gosh, like heartbroken, just like our daughter that we've been trying to get pregnant for a year, and we finally did. And then, she's going to die. And like, she's like, we can see her heartbeat, and like, she's alive inside of my wife. That was horrible. But we're like, is there any chance? Can we make it through this? Whatever. And so we go up to we're in Utah, so we have pretty good healthcare, medical professionals up at the U, kind of have the campus at University of Utah, primary children's especially. And so we were up there. My wife was up there like so much, 2-3 times a week, like every week. And essentially, we just kept going. We kept going. We figured out it's basically the first, is it the tricuspid or the bicuspid valve is the first valve? Which one is it?
The tricuspid is the one that on this side of your heart, the right side of your heart. I think
the first valve that the deoxygenated blood goes into, the very first valve.
Mm-hmm. So there was where it comes out up through the rest of your body.
Okay, so the bicuspid. So there was a part of that valve, right? Imagine like blood coming through, and these valves are opening, and the blood's coming through. So one of those valves was not working. And so there was backflow of blood. And this is the Epstein's anomaly. And I guess the case of it was like just as rare as Epstein's anomaly, right? It's in the name. It was the most rare form of that. So that it was just completely, like one in millions and millions that this would happen. And it was happening to us. And so we kept going, and she developed, high drops, which is like a lot of fluid around the baby, and, like organs were starting to not function as well. And we were getting to a point where it was going to be, we were going for these checkups, and the doctors were just like, she should be dead already, not like that blunt, but she's like, she should be dead already. She should be dead already. So we're like, okay, any day now, just like torn to bits from it. And we finally got to, above 30 weeks. I think it was 32 weeks or so. And there were talks around that time, that if she can make it to the week 36, we could, the terms are not, where you kind of force pregnancy. What is that called? Or delivery? Induce. Yeah. Duh. Uh-huh. She would get induced, and then right when she comes out of the womb, like she'd have to go to heart surgery. And like we were thinking about moving to San Francisco, or like whoever was the top of the top in doing this surgery, that's where we were going to go. We were going to do anything and everything to keep her alive. And she didn't make it. And I remember I was working at a call center at the time, and I was taking phone calls, and my wife called me. I knew she was at an appointment, and I had wasted all my PTO. Not wasted. Sorry, that's not the right term. All of my PTO had been burned through, and I couldn't go to this appointment. And so my mother-in-law was there with my wife, which I'm glad that she was there. but I saw my wife call on my phone, and I was just like, she's gone. And I knew it. And, I was like on a phone call with someone, and, I just like hung up and went to my boss and was like, hey, I can't do this today. My wife or my daughter just died. And so I got in the truck, and dude, I have never felt so much rage go through my body. Like when I say I feel like I could rip the steering wheel out of my truck, I could have. Like I just felt so much rage and frustration. And I've been doing so much to prepare and like help be ready to be a father, going through all of this mental health issues and, all the different choices that I messed up or tried to make right in my life. I feel like I wasn't going to mess this up as a father. And I was like, I got so close. And now I can't do anything. She's gone. Like I can't do anything for her. And that was a horrible feeling, and still is. But I told you I'm very spiritual. I believe that her spirit is around, and I have my own ways and my own religion of believing that. And I've had my own sacred experiences with that, which maybe I'll share a couple that are less sacred or personal here. But, I went and I was with my wife, and we got to, like, she was delivered without a heartbeat. She was dead. She was 4 pounds. So she was itty bitty, but she was a baby. She had the full structures of a newborn baby. But not as like healthy. A lot of people, if you would have seen her, and her name is Emerson. If you would have seen Emerson, you probably would be a bit frightened. However, when I look back at pictures, I just think, what a cute girl. And I'm sure there's going to be times during this recording where I'm going to be hit and some tears will flow. But what's interesting about grief and that experience is, and we've talked about this, is I would go back to the most painful moments and relive them, because those moments also brought the closeness to her. And even after she had died, a week after, you start to notice people just kind of don't really care anymore. They said their condolences and they don't really care. And that sounds bad, but she'd be 4.5 right now. And there's not a whole lot of support. But you're a great support to me. Like, quite honestly, I'm not just saying that. And I think that's a huge reason why I love to be, around you and people like you and my wife. And we've kind of restructured how we think about everything and who we're around and what we do. And I think I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself, but anyway, it just seemed like, every moment that we go forward, it's just further away from when she was here. And like that closeness of like holding her when she was dead, passed, gone, cold, like I'll never get that back. It was 2 days. And it happened so quick, but I have such vivid memories of just holding her, putting her back in the bassinet, which they had to have it cooled to like preserve her body. And, my wife doing that, her doing that. And like, it felt quite sacred, because it felt like she was right there and it felt so good. But as time has gone, I believe that her spirit is very busy doing whatever, and I have reasons to believe that. But just don't feel her around as much. So it's been pretty tough. So, do you have any questions before I get? I'm gonna kind of get into.
No,
just keep rolling. Okay.
Yeah, keep rolling.
So I'd say this about grief is Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson, country singer. He has a song where he states, it's not something you get over, it's just something you get through. And it's a beautiful song about grief, and it's not something I'll ever get over, but I have to keep working through it. And at the time when she had passed, I felt very strong. And my wife was in shambles, in absolute shambles. And I feel very, I don't know what the word is. I feel very blessed to be able to have been in a position to be there for her, cater to her, talk with her, build her up, do whatever she needed, because she needed it and no one else was going to do it. And I don't think no one else could, because even close family, it's like you don't feel the same way as your own kid passing away. Like that's just something that parents share as a bond, whether your kid is passed or not, or whether you can't have kids. That pain is closest with your spouse, or your baby mama or whatever, whoever you're having the kids with. But at the same time, I don't understand how JC grieves, my wife, and she doesn't understand how I do completely. I think we have a great sense of it, but completely, it's hard to understand that with each other. And that's a voyage for the eternities, I think, just trying to understand that, especially in this life. So I mentioned that whole suicidal ideation in the beginning because, believe what you may, but I remember being in the moment after Emerson had passed and said, man, I am so thankful that I had that second bout of suicidal ideation, and then it hit me harder than the first time, and that I worked through it properly, gave it the right attention, and my mind was just, battle hardened, ready for whatever was going to be thrown at me. And this got thrown at me. And I don't, it may have been for me, but more so, I think, for my spouse. And that might be me saying that there's a reason for that, which I believe that there was. And some may say, oh, it's happenstance or just taking opportunity, taking advantage of opportunity. But regardless, it happened, and I'm thankful it happened. Mm-hmm. So, with Emerson passing, it wasn't immediately where I thought, oh, what can I take from this and how can I help people? I didn't think that. I didn't think that for a long time. Grief is tough, like it consumes you. But and I've shared this with you as well, Casey, one of the greatest things that I learned from this experience is that everyone's going through something. And you're going to find people that are going to go through things that are less hard than what you might be going through. But it doesn't mean that they don't deserve support or love, charity. And I think we had a lot of experiences of people saying, oh, mm-hmm. I know exactly where you're coming from. We had a miscarriage. Mm-hmm. And it's just like,
yeah,
a miscarriage and a stillborn is not the same thing. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, well, some people can't get pregnant at all. And so there's that pain of like, at least, even though my daughter was dead, like we got to hold her. Some people can't even get to that point.
No.
Can't even see something on the screen. So it's just, it's important to know every single person, even the people that you view on social media that seem to have it all together. Everybody is going through something painful. And a lot of it's from upbringing or, and maybe just how they feel about themselves. Like I'm serious. I think it's everybody. And so the best phrase, excuse me, that I found is just, I, I can't imagine what you're going through. And it may seem like kind of like scripted at this point because I say it a lot, but I can't. Like, I can't imagine what Casey's going through or, my wife is going through. I can't. I haven't been through it. I'm not in their shoes exactly, Even if Casey had the same thing, heaven forbid, happen to him and his wife as happened to me.
I would still experience it differently.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to say, I know exactly what you're going through, man. And that would be disrespectful for me to say, because it makes me feel like, I'm putting myself in his shoes and putting myself above him. But I think that was a valuable lesson I learned. So if you don't mind.
You said that to me. At one point, I think I made that statement to you. I was like, I can't imagine, right?
Yeah.
And you respond the first time I think we ever talked about it. Yeah. And you responded to me immediately saying, thank you for stating it like that. And I would just being honest,
Yeah.
That was just what came to my mind because I literally still can't. And you mentioned that to me that is maybe the preferred way to explain to somebody that you want to empathize with them, and you can only try to imagine how much pain they may be feeling in any sort of a situation like you experienced.
Yeah. And that's my preference, but I think it's a pretty good one. And I think that a lot of people could agree with it. I think there were some people very close to me, and I've spoken to these people about this. If maybe you won't go through something like this, but maybe somebody who's going through a horrible time or, has some sort of death or disorder or whatever it may be. I know that there were people close to me while we were freshly going through Emerson passing that were just like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to get in the way. I love him. I want to support him and JC and them going through this, but I don't know what to do. And what I would say is, of course you don't. We don't even know what's life right now. We don't even know what to do. How could you have the answer? So don't ask yourself that. And don't ask yourself, what should I do? And you definitely don't ask the people that are going through a lot, hey, what can I do for you? Because the last thing they want to think about is finding some task for you to do. Step in with love and just love. And be honest about it. Be candid. Hey, I really don't want to offend you. And I know that you're going through something bigger than anything that I could imagine. However, I just want to let you know that I love you. I'd like to bring you some food or, take you out somewhere, help you get your mind off things and then I might say, some food would be nice or whatever. And so don't let the confusion of the situation or uncertainty keep you from loving people.
Err on the side of expression, right?
Yeah. And the people that I've mentioned this to, I know this may be painful if you're listening to this to hear this, but it's painful to go through that when you feel like there's nobody there. And I did. And I feel like I needed more going through the suicidal ideation. And then when Emerson passed, I needed a little bit more support than I got. However, I think it really taught something to me about who I am and who JC is as my spouse and what we can work through. And I try so hard not to forget that because I think it's such a good thing to realize how strong you are sometimes as you continually go through some challenges. If you don't have anything to ask, which I'm happy to, if you're like, hey, the listeners might want to know this, or you want to know something, I could kind of move into the healing part of this conversation.
No, I think you've done a good job. I mean, you already told us that she would be 4.5. And so that gives them a frame of reference for how long ago this happened. Uh, I think that's it. Yeah. So maybe say, how many months was the initial real serious shock? How many months,
Yeah.
was it before you felt like you could breathe and you could see a family member and it not be bringing everything to the surface immediately, whether you're thinking, are they going to ask about it? Or I wish they would ask about it, or I don't want to talk about it right now, right? Like, yeah, give the just give a time frame
Yeah.
for
Well, I think,
somebody like me. What would I expect? What would I think? What would I expect in my mind? Because obviously, as we addressed already, everybody's timeline is going to be different, right?
uh,
But for you, tell me about that part of the
I can tell you
process.
about, yeah, certainly. I think that's good. I can tell you about what the timeline was. And I also have kind of what I thought about it. If we didn't have any kids, more kids, which we've got two boys that um, followed Emerson, I think that it would be different. I would say it seemed to have been maybe 2 or 3 months where the rawness started to fade a bit, but we also got pregnant. Well, there I am again. JC got pregnant. I got my wife pregnant. She did all the work. I mean, I hardly did anything. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Slow clap for JC, holding it down. Um, she got pregnant with um, our next born, so second born, first here on earth. Uh, let's see. So he was born in the fall time. So I think it was like,
Yeah,
it
would
was
have
what
been
it was.
early 2020.
Yes, early
Early
2020.
2020.
Yeah. I don't like to give out too much information because I know people
They
could
don't.
use, they're like, oh, yeah, I know his birthday and I know his first name and all that. Like, I don't want to give out too much. This
Yeah.
kid is still growing up and he deserves his innocence. And so, yeah, early 2020, which Emerson passed in fall of 2019. So it was like 2 or 3 months. And so I think with that being so soon, it was like, oh, great. Now we have things to look forward to. And I'm saying that mainly as like external factors, like, oh, yeah, let's stop worrying about all the bad stuff and let's be excited for this next baby and just support him, you know? And so I think that happening kind of like pushed things forward a bit, but we're still, like, and I think with that, I think there's a lot to be processed still within me and my spouse. Um, with the grief. And so I guess it's circumstantial and it's hard to say, what if we never got pregnant again? I think it'd still be pretty raw, to be honest. So I think it's circumstantial, but we've had, I'll say this, we found very temporal healing. And then I'm going to talk about my emotional and psychological healing after that, and maybe we can wrap it up. We had someone come to us shortly after Emerson passed and said, hey, Epstein's anomaly is it comes from genetics. Have you thought about getting your DNA tested and looked into more than 23andMe or Ancestry can look into? Like, yeah, we'll look at it. I was working at Ancestry for the time. So like we had already had the test done, but basically you can download that data and have it be read by more robust engines. So we did, and there were a lot of things in there that were, and I would advise people to do this responsibly. Don't go out there sharing your DNA to every third party site, but reach
literally
out
or technologically.
Right, exactly. So we did that, and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of things about my DNA I didn't know about myself, and how certain things that I maybe had been consuming Just like gas going into a car, like it can have different effects on me. And, it could be another thing that, is just absolute garbage, but I could eat it all day. It's just not going to do anything to me. But other things like might throw off my mood, might make me gain weight. I'm a big believer in that.
That's what you're saying. When you ran your DNA profile, it showed you those things that I see on my ancestry thing that says I'm not sensitive to caffeine, or I'm likely to be an evening person. Is that what you're trying to say?
Way more specific than that.
Like that.
Yeah, but way more specific. Yeah. Like, hey, like dyes, like red dye 40, like that's gonna mess you up. Which I think was the case for my spouse. And just like you're looking at all these different things and it's like, whoa, I consume that on a regular basis. And people like it, if you think that when you were born, that your DNA is just not going to change from here to then, this was kind of eye-opening to me. You're wrong. It can change. And like as a male, your sperm cells are cycling out regularly, whether you want them to or not. And there's certain processes for that, but it happens. And so those cells carry your DNA. And as you continue to, I could be 400 pounds right now, or I could be where I'm at. And I feel like those genes that I'd be passing on, they'd be different. And with women as well, even though they're born with the same egg cells, like the infrastructure around them that you can build through your health, you might be speaking way more, actual concrete knowledge to this, but there are things that you can do. It's not just about how you look and how you feel. It's about what you're passing on, and you should take it seriously, to be honest. I urge everyone to, please. Because you don't want to go through the heartache of not. And, some people are extremely unhealthy in the world's eyes and they just have super healthy kids and it just works sometimes. But I will say that we looked into that, went on some really, really hardcore cleansing processes. Like I was like, it was like heavy metal detox, heavy metal detox. No. But I was like sweating like gray. I was like, is this like the metals coming out? Like, there's like aluminum and all these heavy metals and everything around us. And just like things that were like coming out of you, you'd be disgusted at what your body can hold in and what detoxing can bring out of it. So anyway, we detoxed, and then we got JC got pregnant with our next kid, our first son. And since then, in case you can do a test to it, like we consume and surround ourselves with only the best, and it costs us way more than everyone else is probably normally paying. But I'm saying, like, I invite you to come over and find something that you're like, oh, that's crap, caught you. Like everything in our house is extremely, like the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, the filters that we have, the food, the soap that we use, the deodorant, the everything that we have, what we use to wash our clothes, all the food. We're like, to say organic is an understatement. And that is how we structured our entire life. Because I think, yes, I think it's a good thing. I've never felt better. My wife's never felt better. So I'd urge everyone to do that. Because I think it makes you feel good. But I think also it could be a response of like fear, kind of motivated in fear. Like, we don't want this to ever happen again. We don't want to lose another kid. And we've had these two boys after are like absolute dynamo healthy kids, like so healthy, so smart, insanely smart. And we're just like, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. It seems to be working, So I will say that was a very temporal way that we've kind of healed through that. But every single time that, it's a health choice or what I'm consuming or putting into our life, deep down, it's motivated by the pain and the grief. To be honest, that's what it is, because it all started with that. So let's talk about mental, psychological, emotional healing and what I've done to change my life. I would say that I'm a late bloomer, and in a lot of senses, I'm a late bloomer. I didn't have things figured out. I kind of am like mad at myself.
Couldn't see till 10, couldn't smell till 15.
No, I just feel like since Emerson passed away, my eyes were open to the world, and COVID was happening like right around then. And there's just a lot of things were very political charged environment. People became more polarized, and I just felt that all of that really had a super big impact on me. Emerson passing, of course, that, the COVID experience a little bit. But being a late bloomer, I just feel like I kind of figured out who I was at that point in my life, which would have been around 24, 25. And I'm like, man, I wish it wouldn't have taken that long for me to figure things out or who I was. But I finally found out who I was. And shortly after our firstborn son was born, I was on paternity leave, and I started, looking into hunting, and I got invited to some waterfowl hunts, and I didn't have my hunter's ed done. I had no idea about the process, and I was very interested in it, and I was just interested in it for one purpose. When Emerson had passed, we didn't know what she was going to look like. But what was interesting is JC and I never talked about it, but we both pictured her the same way, which was, tall, slender, dark hair that's kind of wavy, curly, maybe like mine, a little bit. And that there were certain instances where things like that were confirmed. And that's all I'll get into because of the personal nature of it. But when I view my daughter, I view her in the mountains, and I view evergreens, pines, and I couldn't get that image out of my head. And I was like, I need to go chase her. I need to go I need to get in the mountains. Like, that's where she's going to be. And I maybe say that's a silly thought, but I was like, hunting's in the mountains. I've lived in Utah, damn near my whole life, and haven't really been out there much. And so I go through the hunter's ed stuff, and, it wasn't until I learned about bow hunting and hunter's ed where I was like, I have to do this. And I don't know if I need to just ragtag, buy super cheap stuff, but I'm going to do this next fall in a year time. And I did. But
can I pause you?
Yes.
So you're saying that, because we've talked about a lot of this before. So there are a few things that you've said I've never heard before, but one of them was this idea that you associated the beauty of nature with your daughter, and you felt like that's where you were going to, that's where you're going to find her. My question is just, when did you first start to get that feeling, and how? I just had never heard that. I thought that maybe once you got into the mountains, after you started hunting, it was like, oh, this is where she is. But yeah. Are you saying that you had that notion even before it was like, I'm going to start doing archery elk hunting? Oh yeah, like a year before. Really? Oh,
yeah, like very close to her, just holding her. I've felt that I could feel her spirit in a way, her soul, and that's what I understood her to be. Someone who would be there. And I felt that so strongly, way more than once. And maybe put it off a little bit. And I kept having these natural occurrences with with like wildlife and such, where I was like, oh wow, that was her speaking to me or saying something. Like, what? Just very odd things. A lot of it having to do with sparrows and birds is kind of a symbol. I guess I won't get into too much detail because we're kind of running a little bit over time, but one of them was when we had her burial, we like did a balloon release, which was very sad, to be honest. felt like her letting her go. I didn't really like it. And I remember that day, just as a father, it would be, I was just like, is she going to have friends? You know, is she going to have some sort of companionship? Is she going to be alone? I don't know. What does the next life look like for her? Is she going to have enough? And I can't provide that for her, or else I would. But I remember looking at the balloons and I saw these like so vivid, these two like starlings or sparrows like cross right in front of the balloons. And I was like, it hit me. I was like, no, she's good. She's got some people, which was so interesting. But yeah, so the nature, and it's really just like the pines, right? Which we have a lot of here. And so it wasn't until I kind of like started to dabble a little bit in hunting where I was like, this is it. Which if anyone knows me, I'm like like you'd be surprised if I told you that I've just been doing it for the last 4 years. Like I'm so into it, man. So into it. Like it's probably super annoying to people. I love it so much. And really what people might not understand, because it's personal, is my why behind it is to connect with her. And I've had many experiences going out there where the sun passes through the pines just right, or I'm, on a grueling part of my hike and I see a sparrow going from branch to branch, keeping pace with me. And it's certain things where, I'm not like seeking for it. I guess, yeah, I kind of am seeking for it, but I'm not like, oh, is that her? Is that her? Like, I'm not looking, but it just hits me sometimes. It's like, I'm here. I've got you. I've got them written down, these experiences, but like, like, hey, I'm with you, Dad. I'm right here with you, Daddy. Things like that. And just really comforting. And I think that, hunting, there's a lot of details and games and all that you've got to play. And I have to remind myself, like, don't forget your why behind this. And yeah, we like to put big bucks on the ground and, bring the meat home for our family. But I think the times where I've been in the woods and I look at it as, hey, I'm going to work my tail off, but I'm just happy to be out here with good people. Or if I'm by myself, I'm happy to be out here. Maybe my daughter will stop in and just thankful for this experience, this tranquility, and what it does to my mind and my being, my spirit. It just really cleanses me. So I'm absolutely, I don't know how I'd be able to live if I wouldn't be able to do that at this point, which is kind of interesting to say, but like it's who I am. I've completely changed who I am, and I'm very thankful for it. It's brought some amazing people into my life, and even more amazing experiences. And I'm just getting started, so I found a lot of healing through hunting, in ways that I never could imagine, and probably in a lot of ways that people can't understand. Probably not a lot of people at all. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't know if you have any other questions or want me to clarify anything for you, listeners, whoever.
No, I think the first question that came to mind is, if somebody were to say, I want to have, I'm seeking that same healing experience, maybe even they've had an inkling that that's where it could happen. I was going to say, what do you recommend? How do they get the most out of their experience in the outdoors? But my guess is probably being present, being in solitude a little bit, and allowing reflection to happen at the same time as admiration of nature, and the combination of those forces. Obviously, being with somebody who's supportive and makes you feel like you're at home away from home would help. But yeah, anything else? Like, how do you get the most out of your outdoor experiences?
I get the most out of it when I when I don't overthink it and I say, I think I heard a quote, I'm going to butcher it, but it's probably not from anyone famous, but let the bucks fall where they fall, and I'll just do my best and have an open mind and work hard. And I think that, maybe you find solace in woodworking or kayaking or just hiking or whatever. I think there's something to be said about experiencing or intertwining your life with natural things of this world. And maybe if you get that through computer coding, then that would be a shock to me, but that's cool. However, I would just say, like, you can't fabricate it. Nothing about me hunting and how I choose to enjoy the outdoors and how that makes me feel fulfilled as a provider to my family. And the bonds that are built out there. If we didn't have that, this podcast wouldn't be here. We probably wouldn't even be talking if it weren't for it. And I mean Casey and I. And it's just not fabricated. It's not something I have to think about giving effort towards. It's just something I want so badly. And I would say if you have that thing in your life and maybe you're going through a hard time, just go for it. It's only going to bring you good if you feel that it's, whatever it is, like you should do it. And not just you should do it, you deserve it. People deserve to heal through their grief and maybe understand more about their grief, so they can understand the world around them, or they can help the world understand them. But it's totally, I would advise everyone to do that and follow it somewhat aimlessly. Just go for it. Just give it your all. Let your heart take control. So.
Well put, man.
Thanks, dude.
Cole has changed the way that I experience the outdoors, because I have been hunting since I was a little kid. And although my family, everybody has always had a great appreciation and fascination for the outdoors. Well, ever since I started hanging out with Cole and hunting with him, spending time in the woods and in the hills and on the, the lake shore, there's been a much more contemplative and spiritual component. And Cole is much more spiritual than I am at this point in our lives. But if I ever experience it, it's while I'm out in the woods, particularly when I'm with Cole, and I can kind of feel the energies that he is feeling. And it's really cool. And so yeah, I hope people appreciate what it takes for you to share your story so openly and publicly. And I'm sure people will hear this. Maybe it's not this month or this year, but people are going to hear this, and it's going to help them process their loss at whatever stage or type of loss that they may have experienced. Maybe it's nothing at all like what you experienced, but it's loss nonetheless, and they need healing nonetheless. And maybe this is going to spark their adventure. And I hope that's the case.
Yeah. I would say, maybe thank you, by the way. And yeah, looking forward to a lot more of that. This is a tough time of year because there's not a whole lot of it going on, but we should probably create more of those year round. If we could have a last call, maybe it doesn't seem on par, but maybe it can help. I'm really just kind of talking to the people going through grief. the experiences that I've had with Emerson's spirit, I would say, are somewhat native in nature. It would be, we're here in America, and I would think that those experiences would be things that, Native Americans would have experienced. And we're just trying to figure it all out. I don't think people really have the answers. I'm really just trying to figure it out. I would say, and I don't think that I should be ashamed of it, what my daughter's passing has done for me, I'm thankful for in so many ways. And one of it is it took me out of the culture that I was raised in. It took me out of, doing the do just because that's what should be done, and focusing more on like the whole purpose behind it. And when I'm talking about this, like I'll say it, I'm mainly talking about Christianity, and I'm talking about my belief in Jesus Christ and my daughter. And that's personal to me. I'm not saying everyone has to believe that way, but what she has done and the hope and the way that I operate and what I hope for in the future and believe in now and the possibilities done by who I choose to worship, it's been very good and healthy for me to have that. And there may be a lot of different faiths in the world. Well, there are. And I would say that yields it yields comfort and hope and faith. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So before anybody ridicules me of sharing religious beliefs so openly, I would say, if you're Hindu or whatever, I'm sure there's different aspects in that. And I think spirituality and religion is a beautiful thing to help with grief as well. So that's kind of my last call, is leaning to that and maybe explore it. And maybe, if you want it in a formal sense or not, I just can say what's worked for me. But not to say that I have all the answers, which I feel like it's the Dunning-Kruger. Once I feel like I have some sort of answers, I realize I don't. And I just keep running into that. And like I said, we're just trying to figure it out.
I'd say for my last call, it just clicked that if you made it this far listening to our conversation and Cole's story, and you have anybody that comes to mind who might benefit from hearing this story, this would be we would appreciate you amplifying Cole's voice and Emerson's voice and sharing it. And we'll probably come back to this subject a lot through conversations throughout the years, personally, obviously, and
totally
on the podcast.
Yeah.
So, and also if you're listening on YouTube in particular, and you have anything in common with this story, we would love to hear your thoughts and your reflection on maybe how you have sought healing in your own way, whether that's in nature or in something else that could give insight to people with reading the comments. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And
thanks for your words, man.
It for me. Yeah.
Did you have anything shameless shout out that came to mind?
No,
not really.
No, just Mother Nature is my shameless shout out. That's it's an abundant resource. We need to respect her and appreciate her, and start thinking really hard about how to keep her healthy so she can sustain us as human beings. And I guess that's mine.
Yeah, you're very passionate about that, and I love that. We do need to, because of the healing that it can provide and that it has provided, and the connections it's provided for me with my daughter, with you, with many others. Well, not many. I don't have many friends. Let's be honest.
I don't either.
It's way more powerful than face value. We do need to take care of it, and it's an election year. Think about who you want to be in certain seats and control of certain things where, like if I choose to recycle, what I'm realizing is that's not really going to do much. Like, go to your local grocery store and see how much plastic they've got in their back house. Like, we really got to take care of this world, and the wildlife in it, and just so many different ecosystems that are around. I think that's a great shameless shout out. So if you are like, where do I start? Comment. We'll share some things, some things that we have used. And if it's a wildlife perspective, maybe I might have a little bit more to share on that, like different groups to support wildlife. If it's more on a political or economical sense, Casey might be a really good resource for that too. So.
Okay. I don't want to say his name. We're going to say my candidate's name for another episode, but he was an environmentalist attorney for years. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Seems like
you should think about him. All right, folks. Casey, thanks for being cool to let me, share that, and hopefully
you did a great job telling a story.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate all the support throughout the years. It really means a lot to have a good friend like you. And just the same old thing. Hey, please subscribe. I know that there's people listening that aren't subscribed. We're not gonna hide anything from you, but to be very clear, the more people that do subscribe, will help us get monetized. And we're not trying to do this to quit our day jobs, but the more money that we have, we're gonna have better equipment. We can bring more people on. We can have better experiences for you all on this show. That's what we're after. So when you hit subscribe, there are a lot of that helps us get to certain goals, which I think it's to the start on YouTube is 500, and we're at currently 17. So we do need your subscriptions, at least for a little bit. So please help us out there.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks, brother.
Okay.
You're good,
Thank
man.
you, man. Have a nice night.
You too.